Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of old sheet music. I am your host, Nicholas Carroll. Today we are looking at Tone Picture Series from Out of the Past. This is published by the St. Louis Art Society. What's interesting about this, and I have a few more of pieces in this style, in this series. What's interesting about this, and you can see the young children minuetting there, is that it does not have a composer listed. And that is because the St. Louis Art Society did not ever list the composers of these pieces. They were supposed to be educational pieces, and they wouldn't actually list who wrote it. So perhaps it was a collaborative effort. I'm thinking perhaps, like a group of teachers kind of got together and maybe one person wrote the piece and then they all commented on it and kind of came up with it as a group to try to teach, specific things. So in this case, it does have this note on the front page that says, with the story, fingering, phrasing, glossary, instructive annotations on the subject matter, form, and structure in method of study. So, it was just, even though it's one piece, there is like a good bit of other stuff in this sheet music, which is one thing that makes these kind of series interesting, this Tone Picture series. So this is priced at 30 cents, so that tells me right away it's probably a fairly old one. This one does say here on the second page, it's copyright 1924. So I'll read you the first page here that tells you what this piece is all about, from Out of the Past. General information. The minuet is a piece of music and dance rhythm of early French origin. It is attained its greatest popularity as a dance in the first half of the 18th century when it was used at important social gatherings in the courts of many European countries. Although not popular any longer as a dance, the musical form has a place in the present day in symphonies and sonatas. At the end of the minuet proper is a second minuet, usually added on. In early times, this second minuet was written in three-part harmony and therefore often bore the name trio, a name which has been retained to the present day. There are, however, no longer any restrictions as to the number of voice parts it may contain. The trio is introduced as a contrast in expression, and the key is generally different from that of the minuet proper. The composition of minuet and trio is intended to represent a court dance of the 18th century. There is a great deal of familiarity about it, but the dancers, both men and women, have learned how to move gracefully and are showing themselves off to the best of their advantage. Poetic idea. There is none of the modern ballroom rush about the minuet. It is a heritage from the days when wavering candlelight filled the room on stiff brocade and flashing sword hilt, when trim slippers and buckled shoes stepped a dignified measure, and there was time for graceful bows. Like the fragrance of lavender, like the soft tints of old miniatures, comes this strain of dance music from out of the past. And yes, it has that in quotes. So then it goes about telling us what the structure is. This would be something you could use with a student, of course, to go through, the standard minuet form. At the bottom here, our method of study is to divide it into eight measure periods, each period containing 2 4-measure sections, and it kind of goes through the process of chunking, we call that nowadays, where you take out sections and practice them over and over again. So, let's see, this came apart, so I'm going to make sure I have this in order. Okay, so here we go. This is a page that is nothing but a glossary of various Italian terms, and then it has very specific notes about every single set of phrases. So like it will say, for example, measure 1 through 4, the first note of the group of 16 notes takes a slight accent, etc., etc. You can read all that. But that gives you an idea. It is very, very descriptive of exactly how they want this performed. So we have a fairly easy piece. This would be maybe early intermediate just by first glance. if you're ranking it according to our common difficulty level system we use now. And I do think this is kind of cute, I guess, in its own way. It says memorize here in handwriting that somebody was told they had to memorize this. So, from Out of the Past by Anonymous. So once you play this and investigate it, you can see it is a very derivative piece. Clearly it was just intended to teach you what a minuet is instead of being really a great piece of music. So of course part of you as a educator says, okay, that's cool, they have this long descriptive text, and another part of you says, why not just teach a minuet that's actually famous to teach the same stuff, instead of writing a new one that's kind of like, who even wrote it? Let's not take credit for it. So it's not like you can't find stuff of that difficulty level. It's, something by Clementi or even an easier Mozart or Beethoven minuet that you could use for the same purpose. So that's my take on it. Not really necessary, but at this time, tons of sheet music was selling like crazy. So it kind of makes sense when you think about, there was a market for it. And if you just reprinted a Mozart thing, maybe, at this time you would have had to worry more about the who owned what rights to publish what. And nowadays it's all like everything's fair use that's, that old. So could be an influence, but I'm just speculating. So that is Tone Picture Series from Out of the Past by St. Louis Art Society Publications. See you next time.